Hi, I'm Jake, 32, and last month my life blew up when I gifted my parents a $1.2 million penthouse overlooking Central Park, and 2 months later, I got locked out by the doorman. Let me rewind. I just closed a deal that took 3 years of my life and more than a few gray hairs. It wasn't flashy IPO money, but it was enough for the first big win of my career, a 7-figure equity payout, post-tax. Not a tech unicorn, just a clean exit from a fintech startup I joined before Series A. The very first thing I did, before the new car, before the sabbatical, before I even told my girlfriend, was buy my parents their dream. They had raised me in a rent-controlled 2-bedroom in Queens. 40 years of subway commutes, coupon clipping, and quiet sacrifices. My dad still wore the same watch from his wedding day. My mom never once flew business class. And for as long as I can remember, they dreamed of retiring in Manhattan. Not Florida. Not the burbs. Central Park. Specifically, my mom had once said, half joking, half manifesting, "Just imagine coffee every morning looking over the reservoir." So I made it happen. All cash. 3-bed, 5-bath. Elevator building with a doorman and a view that belonged in a movie. They cried when I gave them the keys. My mom hugged me so hard she knocked my glasses off. My dad whispered, "You didn't have to do this," while already texting the family group chat. It was one of those rare moments where everyone was happy, no one was fighting, and I felt like I had finally done something permanent. Something undeniable. We celebrated with takeout tie on the living room floor because the movers were late. My mom insisted on giving me the good fork. My dad made a joke about me finally being the favorite. I laughed. I was the only child. That was 62 days ago. The last text I got from my mom said, "We just want peace." The last time I tried to visit, the doorman told me I wasn't on the guest list. And the kicker? I'm still paying the quarterly property tax. Automatically. Like an idiot. So what happened between those Thai takeout cartons and the security desk snub? It started subtle. A week after move-in, my fiancée Becca and I came by to drop off a housewarming gift. Just some framed art we had printed, an old map of Central Park from 1910. My mom blinked when she saw us. "Oh. I wish you'd told me you were coming." She was still in her robe. My dad was halfway into a drawer like he was looking for something to hide. I shrugged it off. They were probably just tired. Or adjusting. The art got placed sideways on a hallway table. 2 weeks later, I texted about bringing Becca's parents over. They were in town from Minneapolis and had always wanted to see the park. My mom replied an hour later, "This weekend's not good. We're still nesting." Nesting? I asked her if everything was okay. She left me on read. Becca suggested giving them space. "It's probably overwhelming, Jake. Big change. Maybe let them settle in." So I gave it time. I didn't bring up the weird energy. I didn't mention that they hadn't invited me back once. Then came the doorman incident. Becca and I had just had brunch nearby and I figured we'd pop in to say hi. I handed the guy at the desk my name. He checked. And checked again. "I'm sorry, sir, you're not on the access list." I actually laughed. I thought he was joking. I gave my parents a call. No answer. Texted. No response. Becca squeezed my arm and said, "Let's go." I didn't. I stood there, watching as a delivery guy buzzed in without a second glance. The doorman, trying to be helpful, said, "Maybe they just forgot to add you. It happens." But they didn't forget. That night, my mom finally texted back. Her message was short. "Jake, we need to set some boundaries. We finally have peace. Please respect that." Boundaries? They'd lived in a rent-controlled apartment next to a 24-hour laundromat for 38 years. Their living room used to double as my dad's office, which was just a folding table and a squeaky chair. They never had privacy. Never had space. Never once complained. And now, in a home I bought for them, they needed boundaries? Becca read the message and said, "She's trying to say something without saying it." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I opened my laptop and checked my autopay dashboard. Yup. Still paying the tax bill. Still titled in my LLC. Still mine, technically. But apparently not welcome. And here's the part that keeps me up at night. I think I know what happened. And I think it started with Becca. Or, more precisely, with the wedding. Because 3 weeks after the penthouse gift, my mom asked a casual little question over the phone. So, will Becca's name be on the deed to your house after you're married? I told her we hadn't decided yet. That it was a discussion for after the prenup was signed. My mom made a sound, somewhere between a scoff and a sigh. Marriage is about unity, she said. Not contracts. I told her that Becca and I agreed on being pragmatic. That we both had assets. That it wasn't personal. She didn't respond. That's when the shift started. Polite but chilly texts. Avoiding Becca in group chats. A sudden obsession with quiet mornings and just us time. She even asked me, in a voice that barely hid the judgment, if we were sure about having a destination wedding. The woman who once said she'd follow me to Antarctica for my vows now couldn't commit to Miami in June. I ignored the signs. Because you don't assume your own mother is building a case against your future wife. But now, standing on the sidewalk outside the penthouse I paid for, not welcome, I realized something. They didn't just want peace. They wanted me out of the picture. Or at least me plus one. And if I was right about that, I was about to find out just how far my parents would go to pretend this entire gift came with no strings attached, even if it meant rewriting history. Even if it meant rewriting me. The next day, I took off work. Not because I had a plan, but because I couldn't focus on anything besides the image of myself standing outside my own parents' front door like some unwelcome solicitor. Becca was quieter than usual. She brewed coffee, made eggs, and didn't say much until she noticed I hadn't touched either. Are you going to call them? She asked gently. I shook my head. They don't want to talk. She set down her mug. Jake, you gave them everything. That penthouse? You could have retired early. Instead, you handed them a $1.2 million Manhattan view like it was a fruit basket. That made me laugh bitterly. Maybe I should have included a card. Love you, enjoy the betrayal. She gave me a look. You don't actually believe they're trying to cut you out completely, right? I didn't answer. Because the truth is, I wasn't sure. It wasn't just the locked-out incident or the text about peace. It was the pattern. My mom had slowly begun recurating her life like it was a magazine spread, and I didn't match the aesthetic. And Becca? Definitely not. A few weeks before the move, Becca had asked an innocent question during dinner. What was your first apartment together like? My dad laughed and said, Oh, a glorified shoebox. We had to take turns brushing our teeth. My mom, though, she stiffened. It wasn't that bad, she said quickly. We made it work. Later that night, she texted me. Please remind Becca that not everything needs to be dissected. We prefer to look forward, not back. I remember reading that and thinking, since when? My parents lived in the past. Every other conversation was about back when bread was 20 cents, or when rent was less than a movie ticket. But now the past was inconvenient. Especially the part where I was the reason they had the future they were living. And it was starting to feel like that future had a velvet rope. One that didn't include me. So yeah, I didn't call. I showed up. Becca begged me not to. Don't let them push you into looking like the problem, she warned. That's what people like this want, plausible deniability and quiet exile. I nodded. Then went anyway. I didn't bring flowers. Or gifts. Or even a smile. Just a manila envelope and a fact. The property was still in my name. The doorman recognized me and looked deeply uncomfortable when I asked him to buzz up. Sir, I can't override the access list. I understand, I said. Can you just let them know I'm here? That I brought something important? He nodded. I'll call. He didn't need to. 10 seconds later, the elevator dinged. My father stepped out. I hadn't seen him in person since the day I gave him the keys. He looked taller somehow. Relaxed in a way I hadn't seen since I was a kid. Jake, he said neutrally. Didn't expect you. I lifted the envelope. We need to talk. He glanced down, saw the return address, my trust's legal office. His face tensed. Now's not a good time. No, I said. Because 2 months ago you said, son, you've changed our lives. He didn't respond. So I said it for him. And now I'm not welcome. There it was. Silence. Not confusion. Not surprise. Just the kind of silence that confirms everything. I need you to take this, I said. It's the updated occupancy agreement. I'm keeping the taxes in my name for now. But if you don't want my presence, you also don't get my liability. That broke the silence. My dad's jaw tightened. You're overreacting. I'm following your lead, I said. You want boundaries? Fine. But you don't get to redefine ownership while I'm still footing the bill. He took the envelope, reluctantly. Then glanced toward the lobby security camera, as if reminding himself to stay composed. I'll talk to your mother, he said. Maybe we can have a sit-down. No, maybe, I said. Either we talk, or the next notice comes with legal header. I turned to leave. Then paused. Also, I added without looking back, next time you change the guest list, just remember whose name is on the title. That was the last word I got in. Because 2 days later, the next notice came. And this time? It was from them. A lawyer. Retained by my parents. Requesting that I transfer the title fully. You know, to avoid legal confusion and maintain harmony. It ended with a line I'll never forget. Mr. and Mrs. Rossner wish to fully inhabit their new life chapter without external entanglements. They are deeply grateful for the gift and respectfully request that all formal ties to the property be severed in good faith. In other words, thanks for the $1, 2 million. Now kindly disappear. I sat on the couch, holding the letter stunned. Becca read it, mouth open. They're kicking you out of your own gift. They're formalizing it, I said. Making it polite. Then I did something I never thought I would. I called my mother. She picked up after 2 rings. Hi, sweetheart, she said, voice syrupy and fake. Is this about the letter? You could have called me. I thought this would be cleaner, she said. No drama. No drama? You sent a lawyer to my apartment. You're the one who brought up legal stuff first, Jake. You gave us an envelope. I almost laughed. That was an occupancy agreement. You know, so the IRS wouldn't assume I'm using it as a second residence. She sighed, like I was being the unreasonable one. We just want peace, she said again. You keep saying that. I snapped. But peace doesn't require exile. There was a pause. Then, coolly, you chose to tie your generosity to conditions. That's not a gift, Jake. That's a leash. That hit harder than it should have. Because the truth is, I didn't tie anything. I gave them the penthouse. No rent. No expectations. All I wanted was what every kid wants, to be invited in. To be part of it. To be seen. But apparently, that was too much. So I told her. Fine. I'll sever it. Thank you, she said, like we were finalizing a trade deal. But I'm not gifting the deed. Now she was quiet. You can buy it, I said. At a family discount. Or I'll sell it. Or I'll donate it to the nonprofit that works with housing insecure seniors. Your choice. Jake, you don't want the strings? Then pick up the scissors. But I'm not subsidizing my own erasure. I hung up. And for the first time since that ridiculous text about boundaries, I felt something close to clarity. They had made a choice. And now so would I. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. Because when word got out that I was pulling the gift, my own extended family got involved. And let's just say, they weren't on my side. You'd think that pulling a $1, 2 million penthouse from your ungrateful parents would come with at least some understanding from the rest of the family. Spoiler, it didn't. What I got instead was a sudden flood of group texts, veiled threats, and a voicemail from my mom's older sister that began with, "Now, Jacob, I say this with love," and ended with, "You're making your mother physically ill." By the end of the week, my phone felt radioactive. Becca watched me stare at it on the coffee table like it was hissing. "You need to get ahead of this," she said. "How? Hire a PR firm?" My mother basically called me a financial abuser in a group chat with people who still use AOL. No, Becca said, picking up the phone. You need to talk to her. She scrolled, found the contact, and held it up. Aunt Margie. My mom's younger sister. The one person in the family with a BS meter strong enough to detect a lie at 40 yards and still yell over it. I'm not dragging her into this, I said. She's already in it, Becca replied. She texted me last night. Wants to know your side. So I called. Margie answered with her usual no-nonsense tone. Tell me you didn't threaten to evict your own parents. I inhaled. It's not eviction. It's ownership accountability. That's a lot of syllables for I'm pissed off. I explained everything. The locked-up moment. The lawyer letter. The snubbed visits. The weaponized boundaries. When I finished, there was silence. Then Margie said, Okay, yeah? That's messed up. A pause. But I'm going to ask you a real question, Jake. One you probably don't want to hear. I braced. Did you really give it to them? Or did you always expect it to come with a seat at the table? That one hit like a gut punch. Because the answer was complicated. Yes, I gave it freely. No, I didn't expect keys. Or a room. Or even special treatment. But I did expect to be welcome. Not worshipped. Not owed. Just welcome. Is that so wild? I told Margie. If your niece gave you a beach house, would you invite her over for coffee? She barked a laugh. I'd rename the damn beach. Exactly. Before we hung up, Margie promised to talk to my mom. Just give me 48 hours. No drama, no declarations. Let me do recon. I agreed. But recon turned into something else entirely. Because 2 days later, Margie called back and said 6 words I'll never forget. Your mom says Becca is the problem. Wait, what? She said you've changed since the engagement. That you've become cold. That Becca's influence is, and I quote, divisive. I blinked. She thinks Becca's manipulating me into ungifting the penthouse? Worse. She says Becca's trying to control her. That's when it all clicked. This wasn't just about the condo. This was about control, but not mine. Hers. All these years, my parents had a script for how things were supposed to go. I'd be the successful son, with the tidy wife who hosted Christmas and called my mom for gardening advice. But Becca? Becca was sharp. Funny. She cursed like a sailor, and once told my mom her pot roast was weirdly slippery. Becca didn't play the role. And neither, apparently, did I. Because when I gave them that penthouse, I thought I was giving them a new chapter. But to them, it was the final act. The curtain call. The moment they could finally take a bow, say, "We did it," and fade into a quiet, curated life of long walks, crossword puzzles, and only the kind of family who knew how to behave. And we, didn't fit the new decor. So they decided to rewrite the script. And the best way to do that? Make the son feel like the villain. That night, I sat on the couch with Becca, both of us silent. She finally said, "So what now?" I opened my laptop. Pulled up the deed. Opened a new browser tab and searched. Can you rescind a property gift without formal title transfer? The answer? Yes. Technically, the property was still held under my LLC. All I had to do was file a change of occupancy, transfer the tax obligations, and revoke access. In short, move them out. Becca looked over my shoulder. You're really doing it? I'm not kicking them out, I said. I'm giving them a chance to be honest. If they'd rather cut ties, let's make it mutual. The next day, I drafted a letter. It was short, professional, polite even. As the titleholder of 1040 Central Park West, I am formally requesting a discussion regarding future occupancy arrangements. If continued residence is desired, we can explore options including purchase at a below-market rate or transition to a lease agreement. If not, please prepare to vacate within 45 days. I sent it via certified mail. With a note at the bottom. Love. Jake. And then? I waited. Waited for a call. A scream. A counteroffer. Even a fight. Instead, I got an email. From my mother. 4 lines. Jake. We're deeply saddened by your actions. Please direct future correspondence to our attorney. This will be our final personal communication. I stared at it. Becca read it over my shoulder. That's it. I nodded. That's it. No thank you. No apology. Not even an acknowledgement. They'd made their choice. And now? I had to live with mine. But I wasn't done. Because if I was going to be the villain in their story, I figured I might as well play the part right. For weeks later, the penthouse was empty. No note. No thank you. Just 2 pairs of slippers left by the door, like I was supposed to find meaning in their silence. Their lawyer had reached out once, offering a brief message. My clients are cooperating with the requested vacate timeline. No further comment. And just like that, they were gone. The place felt wrong without them. Not because I missed them, but because I couldn't stop seeing it the way I first imagined. My mom by the window with coffee, my dad reading the Times, me walking in on Sundays with bagels and dumb jokes. Instead, it was just polished floors and an echo. Becca came with me to do the walkthrough. She didn't say much until we stood by the giant picture window, staring at the skyline. They really left, she said quietly. Yup. You okay? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be the guy who shrugs it off with dignity and a deep quote about closure. But instead I said, they'll never see this view again. Not from here. Becca nodded. That's on them. We sold the place 2 months later. Off-market, to a retired couple from Vancouver who cried when they saw the balcony. I gave them the same deal I gave my parents, except this time, I got a check. I donated 1/3 of the proceeds to a housing nonprofit. Put the rest into savings. Becca told me I should book a vacation. I told her I needed a new therapist first. As for my parents, they didn't call. Not even when the wire transfer hit. Not even when they downsized to a rental in Forest Hills and my cousin texted me. Dude! They're telling people they sold the penthouse. Of course they were. The story was theirs now. Rewritten, rescored, respun into something palatable. The truth? Too messy. Too much guilt. Too much Jake. Aunt Margie called me once after the dust settled. She said my mom wasn't speaking to her either. Said Dad was telling people I had a breakdown. You okay, kid? She asked. Not sure. You did the right thing. I know. You gonna forgive them? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to. But because I couldn't. Not yet. And maybe not ever. Some betrayals come quietly, with lawyers and access codes and polite lies about peace. Others? They show up in 3 lines of email and leave you standing alone in a $1.2 million apartment wondering how love gets edited out of a family photo. But here's what I do know. I'm not the villain. I gave them something priceless. And when it didn't come with total control, they walked out. So now? I'm done gifting. Done begging. Done shrinking myself to make room for people who leave when you stop handing them the pen. I'm not a villain. I'm just the guy who finally said, no,